Hello, all, and welcome to Astro Wheel of Fortune. My name is Vlada and I read tarot. And today I'm doing a reading on another major arcana card as part of my series, Tarot by Tarot. So, if you want to check out the other major arcana cards that come before the Lover's card, you can check out my playlist to get the readings on them. So I've done all the cards that come before the Lover's card so far. And today we're doing the Lover's card. So I feel excited because I kind of took a bit of a break between doing the other ones and coming to this one. The other ones I was kind of doing every couple of days, or I was filming every, 3 days. Whereas this one, I felt for some reason I needed to take a break. And I thought that was very interesting as well. And so I'm finally doing it. And yeah, I'm really excited to see what is going to be coming up for this. So I'm going to be using the book that I've been using in all of my other readings in this series, The Tarot, History, Symbolism, and Divination by Robert M. Place. We're going to be connecting to the passages that he has in the books as well, if we feel called to do so. But for now, let's get started with the Lover's card and see what the Lover's card has to say to us. So we're going to pull a card or two. I'm actually feeling like I want to pull two cards at the same time because there is a duality with the Lover's card. And also, I think just reading the book and how the Lover's card has evolved is very interesting to me. Because it kind of went from meaning one thing to meaning another, or like meaning both. So actually, I asked for two cards and the two cards fell out. I'm not reading reversals, so we're going to see what these are. We've got Eight of Pentacles. And we've got the Page of Swords on the other side. I'm going to put them like this. Okay. So let me get into the energy of the Lover's card with these two cards on the side. I'm kind of getting with the Lover's energy. There's something about being new to something or being a novice to something. And it comes from a place of passion and desire. But there's a sense of newness that the Lover's card represents that maybe we are not paying enough attention to. There's a sense of connecting to something from a place of, I don't know anything about this, I'm not an expert, but I want to explore it, and I want to explore it consistently. And I suppose that's where the energy of desire comes in. But I'm going to get into this a little bit further, but I wanted to just refer to the book really quickly because with the Lovers, in the Italian decks, it says here in the book, this card was called simply Love. It wasn't called the Lovers. And the illustration was based on Renaissance betrothal portraits with a man and a woman and a blindfolded Cupid above. As we stated in chapter 3, Cupid's blindfold symbolized his destructive, indiscriminate nature, which needed to be safely contained by the vows of marriage. So, idea of a vow, committing to something, Eight of Pentacles is like committing to something, to be consistent towards something. And the Page of Swords is like being new at something, but being very curious about it. Being very curious about it. And it says here, in the 15th century, Carry-Yale Visconti lovers even includes a small dog with the couple, a common symbol of fidelity. And then when the card evolved, as we move through time, the card evolved, especially in Tarot of Marseille. So the angel was transformed into a priest first. So in the tarot, but then the priest was transformed into another woman, a second choice for the central man, which is quite like patriarchal, probably, Patriarchy was taking over hard in this one, I think. Second choice for the central man. Now, the theme became a choice or temptation. So, I think what's interesting with the Lover's card is that the card kind of represents desire for more knowledge, and I think that is really highlighted here with the Page of Swords, and especially because it's in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It is literally Garden of Eden, where they eat the apple and they gain the knowledge, right? But there's a feeling that I'm getting with this card, and from what we see in the book, it is a representation of desire for more, specifically knowledge, but it's not just knowledge, it's kind of like desire for more awareness or consciousness. And I think it's funny because I kind of feel like talking about the third house because I've been doing a series on the houses, the 12 houses of astrology as well. And if you want to check that out, I have a playlist on that as well. But I've kind of come to the conclusion that the third house is really the house where we decide that we want to... the first house is where we decide we want to have consciousness. It's like the consciousness exists. The second house is where you interact with your external environment. And the third house is where you become truly conscious. That's the way that I would. So the first house is desire for consciousness. The second house is like interaction, consciousness interacting with the external world. And the third house is like consciousness becoming consciousness, understanding, grasping things, grasping ideas, grasping concepts, understanding concepts. And the Lover's card being ruled by Gemini as well, being connected to Gemini, there's something that the sword energy is actually very strong with the Lovers. So the idea of knowledge is actually very strong with the Lovers because swords represent knowledge. And so the Lover's card is trying to say here, it is about desire, but this desire is a lot more mental than it is like physical or carnal or whatever way you want to put it. There's something quite sophisticated about this desire that comes through with the Lovers. It's the desire to go outside of what the comfort zone is. The Lovers, that's why it represents a choice. Because the Lover's card, sometimes when we pull the Lover's card, it represents a choice. And the choice is, do I want to stay in my comfort zone? And, before the Lovers, we have the Hierophant. And the Hierophant is a state of morality, the state of right or wrong that outside institutions have told us or taught us. It's the mentorship that we have received before we had a chance to probe or explore outside of it. And so the Lovers kind of represents the choice to be conscious. The Lovers represents the choice to be conscious, and to be conscious is to... If you make the choice to be conscious, if you make the choice to commit to something consistently, and if it is commitment to a certain level of consciousness, you can't back out of it. So when you commit to a desire, even if you don't... how do I even put this? If you make a choice to follow a desire, to follow a specific desire, like a desire for knowledge especially, once you know something, you can't unknow it. You can't you can't take it back. You can't go back on knowing something. You can't go back on your knowledge. The knowledge is therefore ingrained. The knowledge is therefore a part of you. So the Lover's card wants us to remember. Okay, I'm forming my thoughts a little bit better now. The Lover's card wants us to remember that a choice to know something, it's not just about the choice itself. It's also about the fact that once you make a certain decision or a certain choice, you can't truly ever go back on that choice. You can't ever truly go back on that decision. You can try to go back on it. You can try and pedal back, but things will never be the same. So once you make a choice, you either commit to it or you don't make the choice at all. That's what the Lover's card represents. It's that you either make this choice and you commit to this choice, or you don't make the choice at all. If you feel like there's a chance that you will backpedal on this choice, whatever the choice may be, whatever this decision may be, well, then you just don't, you don't make it. You only make a decision or you only make a choice if you are very, very sure you're going to keep going with it. You're going to commit to it through and through. So the Lover's card would come out in a reading where it is kind of saying to you, okay, you're faced with a choice, you're faced with a decision. But if you're going to make this decision, you're going to have to stick to it. You're going to have to commit to it. You're going to have to put time and effort into it. And you're going to have to be okay with being very new at it. You're going to have to be okay with having minimal knowledge. Even though you will have knowledge, you'll have minimal knowledge until you build up that knowledge. It's kind of like it's your responsibility there. Any choice that you move forward on becomes your responsibility. The choices that you make become your responsibility. Really, the Lover's card is standing out as like, it is the card for desire and temptation. And it's kind of like we are tempted by choice. Choice is tempting. We are tempted by choice. If there's no choice, there's no temptation. If there's choice, there's always going to be temptation. But it's so much more mental than it is like carnal or physical. It's stimulated in the mind is what I'm picking up on. So when, the Lover's card in like the Tarot of Marseille, for example, the choice is like two women and there's a temptation of another woman. The choice is actually mental. You're not making, it's kind of like, oh, that person was making a decision with their dick or they were making a decision. It's like, it's always mental. And actually, I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in this book as well that I read, but I don't remember where. I don't know if it's in this passage because it might be in a different passage. I should have mentioned it. I think it was in this book as well. If you read this book, let me know if you remember where this was. I should have marked it, but I'm pretty sure it was in this book as well that in certain cultures or religions, the genitals were considered like a second mind. And if you think about it, like sacral energy, like the sacral chakra, it's the chakra of like creativity and desire. But you are creative if you're creative from your sacral chakra, but your creativity also dwells in your mind because you're using your mind. So the two are kind of connected. So there's something about, I'm picking up something on the mind being connected to like that sexual desire, that sacral desire. And the two, like, I can't remember where I read it, but I read it somewhere. And I'm pretty sure it's this very book. I won't be able to find this. I'm going to try and find this passage, but I can't find that. I wouldn't be able to find this passage right now, where in certain religions or certain cultures, ancient cultures, the genitalia were seen as like the second mind. And so, you know, the phrase of like this person's thinking with their genitals or this person is thinking with their dick is kind of appropriate here. And I feel like that's something that the guide or the guides or the cards or the energies around this reading are kind of guiding me towards. Um, and I'm getting something. Oh my God, my brain's going. It's like if you're making a decision, it's like, oh, she put her whole pussy into this decision. I don't know why that came through. It's so funny. But anyway, but like that's there's something, there's definitely a connection with that, but it's like the desire is not the difficult part. The desire is the easy part. It's do you have the balance? Do you have the, because sacral chakra is the chakra of like inspiration as well. It's like where we become inspired to be creative, to create something. But it's like once we get inspired to create something, and it's kind of like the Lover's card is also the energy. Again, I feel like with these cards, I keep coming back to like children, and like raising children is coming through like as a big like metaphor for everything, which makes sense, you know. But it's like if you have a desire to create a child, if your sacral chakra becomes inspired with desire to create a child, the Lover's card represents that desire, but also sitting there and being like, well, if I make the choice to create this, if I make the choice to move this along, I have to have the consistency, the follow through in order to, you know, bring this child to fruition, to raise a person, not just a child, not just to birth a child, but also to raise a human. The Lover's card represents the responsibility of desire. That desire is desire on its own, but if you choose to act on a desire, if you choose to follow a desire, you have a certain level of responsibility then. And the Lovers is like the moment where you make that decision. And I suppose like with Adam and Eve, the story of like them like eating the apple, having the knowledge, having to leave, as a result, having to leave the Garden of Eden, because it's kind of like, so the terms were that you cannot eat from the tree, but they did. So they chose to violate the terms in a way. And so they had to live with that responsibility, I suppose. Really, the Lover's card is a lot more connected to responsibility, I think, than we realize. And it's that feeling of like, you have a responsibility, or you maybe took a vow or you took an oath to something. Are you going to be tempted by a desire that breaks that vow or breaks that oath? Or are you going to be consistent with it? Or it can represent that, but it can also represent acting on a desire and then, you know, it's kind of like sometimes when you act on a desire and you move forward with something and you create something out of that desire, whatever you're creating out of that desire, you are responsible to that thing then. Or you're responsible for that thing. You're responsible for the child. You're responsible for the, you're responsible for the project that you're creating. We kind of had that conversation between, I'm pretty sure between the Empress and the Emperor cards. We kind of had that conversation of like having to, so if the Empress and the Emperor were describing the process, right, of, you know, the Empress was very much about like nourishment versus being nourished, for being fertile because you were being fertilized in return. And the Emperor was very much like being an authority, having power. Power is currency. What are you giving back in terms of value? If you're taking power over a child, if you're having power over a child, what are you providing that child with? The Lovers kind of represents the choice to do those things, the desire to go for those things. And the fact that the Empress and the Emperor come before the Lovers indicates that we need to cultivate that skill, the Empress skill and the Emperor skill, before we make the choice with the Lovers. I feel like that is what the cards are kind of in their progression. What we're being shown is that you have to be an empress and an emperor before you make the choice towards your desire, before you can act like effectively do it in a way. It's not that you go with the Lover's energy first and you go for the choice first and then you become the emperor and then you become the empress. You need to become the empress and the emperor first and move into the choice to go after that desire after. And then even before the Lovers, the morality, the idea of right or wrong, that is also something that you need to be entrenched in. So it's almost like the Lovers' energy is really about breaking tradition because of a desire for more, or a desire for more knowledge. But before you can break tradition, you need to know what that tradition is, and you need to have a good understanding of that tradition. If you're breaking a tradition just for the sake of breaking a tradition, it's an irresponsible choice, is kind of what I'm picking up on here with this card. If you're breaking a tradition just for the sake of breaking a tradition, if you are, it's kind of like, if you're going to break a tradition and you're going to make a choice to be an outlier in terms of, I'm going to make my own, how do I put this? It's like, I'm going to decide what's right and wrong. I'm going to decide what's right and wrong in my own right. I'm going to make the decisions of what is right and what is wrong in my own right, and I'm going to break away from tradition that tells me what is right and what is wrong. That is all well and good, but if you're doing it from a place of, I'm just doing it just because, I'm doing it for ego purposes, I'm just doing it because I felt like it, you're not going to be as consistent with carrying on with that choice. You may want to backtrack. You may want to go back to the tradition, but will the tradition accept you back? You can't predict that. But if you make a very conscious decision, again, the idea of being very conscious about things. If you make a very conscious decision, on, I'm making a very conscious choice to break away from tradition and break away from the morality standing that the overall collective has made me feel I should follow, because I have considered it, I've become very conscious about it, I've thought about it quite in depth, and I have come to the conclusion that I am walking away from this tradition. I'm making a choice to break away from the collective morality. So I wonder if with the Lovers, because the serpent, the snake, tempts them to eat the apple, is it like the representation of like breaking away from tradition or breaking away from morality just because? Or is it not? I don't know, but it's just something that's coming up. So there's something with the Lovers that is like, are you going to follow a desire just because? Like, I'm almost getting like, are you going to cheat on your partner just because you can? Just because there is variety? Just because there's a choice? Or are you going to, maybe step away from your partner for a very specific reason, as an act of, I actually feel like I would be happier somewhere else. And there's a very specific reason. I've given it a lot of consideration. I've made a very conscious choice. And so I think with the Lovers card, that being like a card of temptation, it's also a card of like, am I being tempted just because? Am I being tempted just because there's another choice? Am I being tempted because I'm indecisive and I'm not able to consider things properly? Or am I being tempted because there's actually a genuine reason And I feel like I am ready to step away from what I've been doing traditionally and consistently. Really, the Lovers is like a transition from one sense of consistency into another. Ah, okay, there's something with the Lovers card as well, right? Where tradition is consistency in a way. That's the way I'm seeing it, and that's the way they're showing it to me. And it's doing something over and over again, just with like with the Eight of Pentacles. He made one pentacle, two pentacles, three pentacles, four pentacles, five pentacles, six pentacles, seven pentacles, and he's making another, the eighth one. There's a consistency. It's like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. That's tradition, in a way. Routine turns to tradition. Routine turns to tradition, right? If you want to step out of routine, or you want to step out of tradition, are you stepping into another routine, or are you prepared to create your own routine that was not created for you? Are you prepared to take on the work that it would take? Oh, traditions take a lot of work by generations and generations. And while they're not always right and they need to be adjusted, and as we saw with the Hierophant, there's a need to evolve traditions. We've talked about that in the Hierophant reading. But if you are going to step out of a tradition, if you are going to go and say, I am not going to follow this tradition any longer because I've considered it, it's not for me. With my new knowledge, I feel like I am ready to move forward. I don't want this tradition. The thing that the cards are really illustrating here is that you are going to have to create your own then. Because the thing is, tradition is everywhere. And tradition, you can't escape tradition. Tradition is just something that we as humans need. And the thing is, if you are going to break away from one tradition, you need to be prepared to create your own. Because without tradition, there's no structure. Just like without routine, there's no structure. Tradition is a form of routine on a bigger scale. So there's that kind of energy with the Lover's card, recognizing like if you are stepping away from tradition, are you prepared to put in the hard work that it would take to create your own? And being completely new at it, not having all the information, not having all the details. Yeah. And I wonder if that's like something to, I don't know, with the Bible and Christianity, is that what the Bible was trying to express? It's like if you're going to break away from tradition, if you're going to break away, like let's say, you know, anyone who followed Christianity, is it that like if you are going to break away from Christianity, you need to make sure that you are able to create your own tradition, your own religion that is consistent, that is very conscious. We will always be tempted to break traditions, but are we tempted to break tradition just because we're feeling like I'm getting contrary or rebellious? Or are we looking to break tradition because our rebellion is well informed and very conscious? The Lovers is a lot more about rebellion than we realize, I think. That's a really big theme that is coming through for me here with the Lovers like showing up in this kind of way. It's desire for rebellion in a way. Okay, the Lovers card is I'm gonna see this as my teenager card from now on. I am going to see this as my teenager card from now on, because I feel like there's something about the Lover's card, desire for rebellion. You know, when you're a teenager, you're just going to have a natural desire for rebellion. And I feel like that's what the Lover's card represents. We all have a natural desire for rebellion against tradition. And it happens to us at a certain time in our lives. And if it doesn't happen to us in our teenage years, it'll happen to us at some point. And if it's repressed, it will happen. Because Page of Swords is also teenager energy. The Lover's card wants us to know that it's really this teenage rebellion energy. And again, when you become a teenager, when you go through, there's puberty involved here. Like, I swear there's some sort of energetic puberty that it goes on with the Lover's card. Puberty. There's so much that goes on with the Lover's card that we don't recognize, I think. It's like energetic puberty. And when you hit puberty, you start, your sexuality evolves for the first time where you are really feeling it. You become so much more curious. Curiosity is strongly connected, like acting on curiosity is strongly connected to our sexuality. Curiosity itself, like the Magician card, right? The Magician card is ruled by Mercury, and the Lovers is Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. The Magician is pure curiosity, just having that curiosity. And it's also like that potential of manifesting something out of that curiosity, right? The Lover's card is really the stage in your curiosity where you get curious in a very daring and rebellious kind of way. In a very daring and rebellious kind of way. It's like, I'm curious. It's kind of, the magician, high priestess, empress, emperor, hierophant is curiosity within the framework of what you're like allowed to be curious about. So it's like the Garden of Eden, right? You're allowed to explore the whole garden as much as you want. Explore every corner of this garden. But if you eat from this tree, it's outside the barriers. It's outside of the barriers and the framework that we've allowed you to be curious. So it's so interesting to me the way that this is progressing. Like the Magician through to Hierophant is curiosity within the framework that you're allowed to be curious within. The Lovers is where you willingly make a choice and make a decision to be curious outside of the framework that society, the collective, the institutions, the energies above you have allowed you to step outside of. And because I keep bringing up how the major arcana, they all trump each other, right? So the high priestess trumps the magician, the empress trumps the high priestess, the emperor, and they all trump each other, right? You get the gist. But the Lovers trumps all of those, right? All those predecessors. Because you can't contain a person's desire to be rebellious and go outside of what is allowed. That's what the Lovers represents. But it's like, if you make the choice to go and explore and be curious outside of what is allowed, well, then it's like every man for themselves. Because there's no way of, the punishment is outlined, maybe with the Hierophant energy, it's like the church dictates the punishment. If you go outside of the framework, you let your desire take over. You have sex outside marriage or whatever. Well, the punishment will be according to that institution or that framework. But it does not mean that if you step outside of that framework that you couldn't create your own. But are you prepared to create your own? Are you prepared to create your own framework? Are you prepared to create an institution that could rival the one that told you to operate within a certain framework and only be allowed to be curious within a certain framework? You could, but that's where the choice lies with the Lover's card. Oh my God. Why is this so exciting? But I'm getting like, this is going to be my teenager card from now on, because that's what teenagers or young adults, like when you're in that youthful energy and you're in that rebellious state. I mean, some people never lose it, right? They just learn how to not be reckless with it, because that's where the Lover's card comes in as well. It doesn't just represent rebellion that is, elegant and, I'm rebelling against a structure. I'm going to create my own. That is a potential there. But there's also a potential, holds its potential. It holds a certain level of potential. But that choice could also be reckless if you are not conscious enough. I'm also seeing with the Eight of Pentacles coming before the Lovers, what I'm seeing is that you need to be prepared for this choice. Sometimes when we make a choice, before we make a choice, we need to assess ourselves. Am I prepared not to make this choice, but am I prepared to handle anything that comes as a result of this choice? Whether it be difficult, whether it be wonderful, am I prepared to just handle? When I look at this choice, does it feel like I'm prepared to handle whatever comes after this choice? Because the choice represents the unknown. The choice represents you being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, right? But what if you're kicked out of the Garden of Eden and you're able to create a Garden of Eden times 10? Like, that's what I'm getting. But are you prepared to take on that challenge? Every choice is a challenge. Every choice is a challenge. And every choice will ask us, like, there will be smaller choices that we might be like, I'm prepared for this because this choice is easy. You know, what am I going to wear today? I'm prepared for this because it's easy for me to decide what to wear today. Or maybe not for everyone, because I definitely know a lot of people that that's not an easy choice for. But I just feel like there's this energy of just like, first of all, are you prepared for the choice? Have you assessed the framework, the tradition that you came from to actively say, you know what, yes, I want to step out of that framework. You know what, yes, I am ready to step out and be rebellious. To be rebellious, you need to be prepared first. To be effectively rebellious. Rebellion requires a certain amount of preparation. Rebellion requires preparation. Rebellion without preparation can be reckless. Wow, and that makes sense, you know, like if people were to decide to rebel against their government, for example, or if they weren't prepared, if they went to rebel against their government and it was like a messy, chaotic attempt, well, then it would be reckless. All it is chaos then. And I feel like it brings us back to that chaotic energy of the Fool. The Lover's card feels kind of connected to the Fool as well. Like, I mean, they're all connected, obviously, but I'm just picking up on this energy of just rebellion without preparedness is just chaos. A choice that you're making randomly. Oh, and because again, linear time is not real, so we're kind of being guided more back to the Fool. You remember, if you watched my Fool video, right? In the Fool video, we talked about how when someone gets bored or someone gets confused, you know, they may decide to go for a random button. You know, they go randomize and let me just land wherever I land. The Lover's card is kind of like that, but it's like, it's not so chaotic. It's just the idea of choice. If you're prepared for a certain choice, to go against a tradition, to walk outside of the framework that you told you have to walk within, if you're prepared for that, making that choice can be like a really effective thing to do. If you're not prepared for it, making that choice can be pure chaos. And it could work out brilliantly for you, and it can work out very badly for you. So, but then at the same time, there is a sense of like, you could be as prepared as you want for a choice. You still need to be prepared for a certain level of chaos. And I think that's where the duality comes in with the Lover's card. It's like, you can be prepared. It's better to be prepared, because if you're prepared, you can make a better choice. But no matter how prepared you are, prepare for chaos. And if you're not prepared, definitely prepare for chaos. It is all about choice, but it's choice that stems from desire and temptation to step outside of the framework that you've been given and told to follow. It's kind of like if you were told to follow a certain framework when you went to college, but you went to college and you said, you know what? this college education, it does not suit me. It's not something that I feel connected to. I am going to rebel against it. I'm going to drop out of college and I'm going to go do this thing, whatever it is. If you prepare yourself well and you go do this thing outside of, the college parameters, you could become very successful. Maybe because you rebelled is why you become super successful. But if you rebel just for the sake of rebellion, if you just say, I hate this like academic routine and tradition, I'm going to rebel, I'm going to drop out, but I don't have a plan and I don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, it could go well for you. It could. You don't know. But it could also just be chaotic and not serve you well. So it's kind of what I'm getting with the Lover's card is kind of like, it's always better to be prepared for your choices. And the way that you become prepared towards your choices is you assess the tradition that you are dwelling in. So by assessing your own routine, by assessing your own tradition, by assessing what you're used to, you become more prepared towards choices in terms of you rebelling against something. This is a very interesting reading. I don't even know if there's anything else, but I am going to pull... I wanted to just pull one card, and I'm just going to leave this one here. And I think it's interesting that we've got the Two of Wands, which also can represent a choice, which is very interesting. But also the Wand energy represents desire as well, and passion. The Lover's card really represents desire and passion, but it's the kind of desire and passion that you need to have a certain... I'm kind of getting wand and sword energy comes together in the Lover's card. It's like you mix your wands and your swords, where you are passionate and you're desiring something and you're becoming inspired to go for something. You're becoming tempted to go for something. But the thing is, you still need to listen to your head. You still need to listen to your rational mind. And I mean, that's so interesting with the Gemini energy. And I wonder if that's maybe how we can even see Gemini energy. Gemini energy is an energy that gets inspired very easily. Gemini energy is inspired. It's excited to learn more. But it also needs to be rational, or else it becomes chaotic, and Gemini energy can really be like that. The Lover's card is about having a desire to make a choice to step outside of tradition and routine, to step outside of what you're used to, and saying to yourself, wait, do I know enough about my tradition? Have I considered and become conscious enough of my tradition? And the governing body that governs me under this tradition and tells me that I can't step out of this tradition. Do I know that energy enough to feel prepared to make this choice to step outside of it? Or do I feel like I need to know more? But there's definitely an element of rebellion with the Lover. I'm getting very strong teenager energy. It's like it's representing everything that a teenager energy would. It's representing the energy of, strong desire just for the sake of desire, sexuality. It represents like that energy of all of a sudden changing in yourself and noticing that you want different things from what you've been told you should want. It's that curiosity that you're like, I'm actually going to explore this curiosity and I'm going to go where I'm not supposed to go. I'm going to go and hang out at that abandoned building with my friends or whatever. Like, not that I was ever that kind of teenager, but I grew up in a very strict environment. But like, the desire was there. I was just scared to do it. But yeah, like there is definitely, there's a very strong desire for curiosity and actually exploring that curiosity, being curious in a way that is deemed wrong, morally incorrect, and exploring why is it wrong, or why is something right? Why is something wrong? and questioning your governing body, questioning your authority. It's a lot more rebellious. And you know what's funny? I kept feeling the connection to the Fool card, and the Fool card is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is the planet of rebellion. So it kind of connects. And I think with the Two of Wands being here, it's like there's a whole world outside of the world that we are told we are living in a lot of the time. We could be, it's kind of like we grow up in a smaller version of a world when we're little, when we're young. And it's kind of like as you hit puberty and you start becoming a teenager and a young adult, you realize, oh, there's a whole world outside of the world I'm living in. And that stage of life is inevitable. There's a world outside of the world I've been told I'm living in. That, I think that's the concept. And am I going to make the choice to step outside of that world? Or am I going to stay in? That's basically what I feel the Lover's card wants to say to us today. That's what I have for you. That was super interesting. I feel like I got so much insight here. I had a great time. Actually, I never read the passage on the Rider-Waite-Smith part, but maybe because we don't need to. But I didn't highlight that much here. As in Plato's Symposium, here love is depicted as one continuum, a divine force that impels us to pursue the good from the physical to the spiritual. The card represents sexuality and other forms of love. That's the Lovers from the Waite-Smith Tarot. Yeah, it's kind of the same, but I just feel this is an interesting card, and I feel like I could probably sit here and talk about it for longer, but I think this is kind of the guts of what we're going to get from the Lover's card today. So I'm going to leave that here. I hope you enjoyed this reading as much as I did. This one was a really cool one. I'm glad I took that break as well. But if you like this reading, do like, subscribe, and comment. And if you feel like tipping me for this work that I'm doing, I would really appreciate it. Of course, it's not expected, but you can tip me with the thanks button at the bottom with the love heart, or you can tip me on my PayPal link down below. If you would like to connect with me over for a service, so if you want to get a reading with me, you can contact me on my Etsy. The link is in the description box below. And if you would like to sign up to my Patreon and get more readings by me, you can do so in the description box below as well. So I'm going to leave it here. I hope you have a great day, a great week, month, whatever. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.